Hi everybody. So what we're looking at here is a sheep brain, and I just want to give you a little bit of a idea of the structures of the brain and what they do. All right, so this is the whole brain, and these are the cerebral hemispheres. This is where any, well, it's a sheep, but any higher thought processes would happen in these cerebral hemispheres. This is the cerebellum, and the cerebellum is where the sheep will, or whoever, if it's a human or if it's another type of animal, will get its motor control from. So how its body moves and if it can move in a coordinated way, the cerebellum will help with that. As we go down the line here, we have the pons, which is basically just a relay center between what's going on in the brain and the spinal cord. This is the spinal cord, and this will travel all the way down the vertebral column of the animal. Okay, as we turn the brain over to the underside, okay, what you're going to see here is the olfactory bulbs, and olfactory bulbs are for smell. So these are going to attach right near the nasal area of the organism, and that's going to help them to detect any kind of odors in the area. Okay, this is called the optic chiasm, and this is where the optic nerves come out. And I'm going to show you on another section of this so you'll be able to see it better later. And again, the pons, which is that relay center, and the spinal cord. Now we're going to move to a section of the brain that I did where I cut it in half, and then you can see some of the inside parts of the brain. All right, so this is the brain cut in half. This is the other side. So you can see I cut both sides. And actually, let's take a look at this one because this one looks a little better right now. All right, so this is, again, the cerebellum. And what's cool about the cerebellum is inside it has something called the arbor vitae, which means tree of life. And you can see it kind of looks like a tree inside. Again, this is where motor coordination happens. Okay, this is the spinal cord, the pons. We have what's called a thalamus here, this little circular section. The thalamus is where all of the sensory information goes into our brain, and then over here is the actually, let's skip this for a second and we go to the superior colliculus. This is the inferior colliculus, meaning this is superior means upper, inferior means lower. And this is where the information that goes into the thalamus, all the information from your eyes, this is your optic nerve going to your eyes, your olfactory, anything coming in from your ears, your senses, anything that you touch goes into this section of the brain, this area of the brain, and then it gets relayed into the superior and inferior colliculus. This will translate this information into movement and help the body orient to space. Okay, so it helps us to, like what we're seeing around us, it allows us to know where we are in space and be able to move accordingly. Okay, now going back to this tiny little thing here, this is called the pineal gland. And your pineal gland secretes a hormone called melatonin, which helps us to sleep. Okay, it also does a few other things, but that's its major function. Okay, now coming down here, we have what's called the pituitary gland. Now your pituitary gland is really important for growth and development. Without this gland, we may not grow properly. It also is really important for activating other glands in our body and telling them what to do. Okay, going up slightly there's the thalamus again. Now below the thalamus is the hypothalamus, and the hypothalamus, its job is for what's called homeostasis. So it allows our body to regulate its temperature. So it keeps our body at 98.6, chickens at 106 degrees Fahrenheit, and dogs at 102 degrees Fahrenheit, depending on what their temperature. Their normal temperature is. It also influences our appetite, whether we're hungry, whether we're thirsty, how much fluid is in our system. So if we eat too much salt, it allows for extra fluid to come in and dilute that. So that's a very important section. It's also part of our limbic system, which is a section of our brain that is responsible for our emotions. Okay. Now coming up here, this is an interesting part. This is called the corpus callosum. Corpus callosum. Callosum means large, so it's really large. And these are just fiber tracts that connect both sides of the brain. Okay, so both hemispheres of the brain. And as you know, like a lot of our movement and speech and higher order functioning happens in our cerebrum or cerebral hemispheres. And without this connection between the two, you can get a lot of issues with speech. You can have a lot of issues with movement, coordinating both sides of your body, and things like that. Okay, so that about covers a majority of the major portions of the brain. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you again soon.